Hello, class. Welcome to Understanding Self Module 5, which is Unfolding Your Emotional Self. So, for section 1, which is Human Emotions and Human Intelligence, here is our intended learning outcomes. At the end of this section, you're expected to describe and explain the emotional side of yourself with the use of different emotional intelligence theories, identify factors that affects the emotional intelligence, and apply emotional intelligence daily. So, let us first define what is emotion. Emotion is the driving force on how we behave and act. So, emotion plays a big part in our decision making as well as the lifestyle we adapt and how we treat other people. And it's easier for us to recognize than to control our emotions. Kumbaga, yung emotions natin, yan talaga yung nagbibigay ng spice sa buhay natin. So, kung imaginein mo para tayong robot, wala tayong emotions, di ba parang ang boring ng life natin? So, as well as sa pagdedesisyon natin, kaya nga laging sinasabi, di ba, na huwag tayong gagawa ng any decisions kapag sobrang extremes ng emotions natin, such as sobrang saya mo or sobrang lungkot mo. Kasi there is a possibility na tinted yung magiging decision mo or magiging bias ka dahil nga sobrang extreme ng emotions mo. So, minsan mas madali sa ating i-name yung emotion than to control them. So, at the end of this module, we will be discussing things on how can we regulate our emotions. So, emotions are lower response level in our brain, which were created by biochemical reactions in our body. So, kumbaga, yung emotions kasi galing yan sa midbrain natin, specifically working yung hippocampus and yung amygdala ng brain natin. Tapos, kapag nakakaramdam tayo ng emotion, si amygdala at saka si hippocampus na mag-friends sila, naglalabas sila ng mga brain signals and then sasabihan nila si heart na mag-pound ng mas mabilis, magsasabi sila sa mga sweat glands natin na maglabas ng mas maraming sweat or yung nginig, nag-chills tayo, ganun, para maramdaman natin yung mga physical responses natin sa emotions. Kaya nga sinasabi na yung heart hindi daw yan talaga yung nagbibigay ng emotions ng love, kundi yung amygdala natin. So pag sinabi mong I love you from the bottom of my heart, it is biologically and politically incorrect kasi you should have said na I love you from the bottom of my amygdala since si amygdala ang nagsabi kay heart na tumugtok yung puso niya pag nakita mo yung crush mo. So, ibig sabihin, mali yun. So emotions is critical for our survival. Kaya sabi ko nga kanina, imagine yung isang tao na walang emosyon, hindi niya alam kung kailan siya tatakbo, kung kailan merong threat, kung kailan mamamatay na siya or merong posibleng gumawa ng masama sa kanya kasi nga hindi siya nakakaramdam ng emotions. Kaya nga yung mga tao na may mga global delay, yung mga tao na may mga autism spectrum disorder na yun nga meron silang difficulty na makabasa ng emotions sa mga tao and also to express emotions, madalas nakakaroon sila ng mga aksidente, yun nga nagiging accident prone sila dahil nga doon sa lack of emotions nila. So, ano bang difference ng emotions and feelings, Ma'am Shady? So, yung emotion is biological experience yan. Yun nga yung sinabi ko sa inyo kanina, si amygdala and hippocampus. Hippocampus pala, just so you know, is the part of our brain wherein yun dun nabubuo yung memories natin. Para mas madaling tandaan, saan ba pinakamaraming memories na nabuo sa'yo? Sa campus, di ba? So, lagyan mo lang na merong hippopotamus sa campus. So, hippocampus. Kumbaga, 'di ba napaka-memorable na may hippopotamus sa campus. So, hippocampus is the part of the brain wherein we store our memories. So, yung feelings naman is the mental portrayer of what is going in our body when we have emotions. So, emotions, it comes from the brain and feelings is the mental portrayal or yung perception mo kapag nararamdaman mo yung emotion mo. Kaya nga, yung love is actually a feeling kasi it is subjective. Therefore, it's a mental portrayal of what we feel when there is a mix of emotions. There is a sudden increase in oxytocin and dopamine and serotonin in our body. Yun yung mga neurotransmitters na biglang tumataas kapag nafi-feel natin yung love. So, Therefore, iba-iba sa subjective yung nararamdaman natin. It is our perception of love. Okay? Yan, no? Kaya nga color medyo pink yung ating slides kasi medyo love, love, love. So therefore, feelings are subjective, sabi ko nga kanina, and based on our personal beliefs and experiences, and emotions are purely physiological. So therefore, we will talk about now emotional intelligence. So, ano ba yung emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence has been defined by numbers of theories. So, let us first start with Baron. Si Baron ay isang tao. So, itong kanyang emotional intelligence theory was given in 1997. It is the array of non-cognitive abilities, competencies, and skills that influences abilities to succeed in coping with the environment and pressures. So, si Mayor Salovey and Caruso naman, parang ano no, Panyo, Armando Caruso. It's one, for him, emotional intelligence is the ability to understand emotion and for them to contribute in how one's perceive the environment he or she in. And then, si Goldman naman, ito yung medyo sikat. He theorized it in 1998. For him, emotional intelligence is the capacity of recognizing our own feelings and those of others, for motivating ourselves, and for managing emotion effectively in ourselves and others. So, itong tatlo na 'to, in-outline nila yung kanilang emotional intelligence theory sa kanilang mga model na i-discuss natin next. So, first nating i-discuss is yung model ni Meyer, Salovey at Caruso in 2004. So, in-outline nila yung emotional intelligence into four branches. First one is emotional perception and expression. So, how you see emotion and how you express emotion. Emotional facilitation as is to make sound judgment. So, paano mo pina-facilitate or minamanage yung emotion so that you can have sound judgment to things, and emotional understanding and analysis and reflective emotional regulation. So, ito yung kina Caruso, Salovey, at Meyer. So, hindi natin siya masyadong pag-uusapan kasi we will focus on Goldman's emotional intelligence. So, next is, sige, punta muna tayo kay Baron, emotion model of Baron na noong 1997. So, for him naman, 5 naman yung composites. So, yun nga, parang parts lang yung composite is another term for part. It's self-perception, self-expression, interpersonal decision-making, and stress management. And then, balik tayo kay Goleman. So, meron siyang own cluster of emotional intelligence. For him, mag-i-start ng emotional intelligence sa self-awareness. You're aware of your emotion. You're aware of who you are. Self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. Okay. So, itong mga 'to, si Goldman, meron tayong ite-test later on. After this, you will take a test on emotional intelligence according to Goldman. Yung bar on kasi may bayad 'to, we will purchase it in Systems Plus, pero hindi pa natin napapurchase sa ngayon. Pero ito yung next naming ipe-purchase na psychological test. So, kung estudyante pa kayo sa systems, malay nyo, makuha nyo yung test na yan. So, yung tatlong models na sinabi ko kanina, they underlie two general aspect of emotional intelligence. First is intrapersonal and next is interpersonal. Interpersonal meaning is on yourself. Intra means inner self, and then interpersonal is among other people. So research has supported that the positive impact of emotional intelligence in a variety of settings. For example, it has have been seen na it has a positive effect on thinking abilities during anxiety-provoking testing conditions. So, pag masyadong mahirap yung test natin, for example, magbo-board exam ka, ganyan, pag mataas yung EQ mo, yung emotional intelligence mo, it will be more advantageous for you. So, mas mataas yung magiging scores mo. In the workplace naman, emotional intelligence or EQ said to have more importance than IQ. Kasi kung ako yung nag-hire, I would rather hire a person with a very high EQ than a person with a high IQ. Kasi baka any moment yung tao na mataas yung IQ magbe-breakdown siya, therefore hindi niya magagawa yung trabaho niya. Unlike a person with a high EQ, kahit average lang yung IQ niya, I think mas magiging teachable siya, mas magiging high yung performance niya kasi mas marunong siya magdala ng sarili niya. Because Sabi nga dito, employees with high EQ achieve corporate success and exhibit flexibility, skills in dealing with superiors or supervisors, colleagues, and subordinates. Madalas kasi yung mga taong may mataas na IQ, yun nga, hindi naman ibibigay sa iyo lahat. Tulad ng napag-usapan natin nung last module natin, yung mga tao na mataas yung kanilang intelligence on math, science, and things like that, medyo awkward sila, may marami silang mga quirks, hindi nila naiintindihan yung mga tao sa paligid nila. Yung mga tao na mas mataas yung kanilang social intelligence, yun nga yung sinabi yung sa yung kay Gardner theory of multiple intelligence, mas mataas nga daw yung kanilang EQ. Therefore, marunong sila makisama sa mga boss nila, sa mga colleagues nila, and subordinates. Kaya nga, pinag-uusapan natin ngayon itong emotional intelligence. So, yung results of various research have highlighted the importance of emotional intelligence for all individuals. The application of emotional intelligence has been in different aspects of daily life, and emotional intelligence research has also produced a number of self-report and assessment tools to measure EQ levels in specific individual. Yun nga yung sinabi ko kanina na later on after this, you will take the emotional intelligence test by Goldman para malaman nyo kung ano yung scores ninyo. So let's go to the second section, which is emotional regulation. So intended learning outcomes for this section is that describe and explain emotional development, expound specific mechanism of emotional expression and regulation, identify appropriate situation in which emotional regulation should be practiced. So ano ba, bakit ba kailangan nating i-manage or i-regulate yung emotions natin? As adolescents, you are considered to have a turbulent time in development due to the biological, psychological, and social changes na nangyayari sa inyong mga buhay. So, ang daming pagbabago sa very cramped time lang na meron sa inyo. So, it's very important that at this stage, you begin to curb yung impulsivity, ma-develop nyo yung emotional efficacy, and ultimately acquire emotional maturity. Later on, pag-usapan natin ano ba yung meron sa mga tao, meron ng emotional maturity. So this will enable you to make viable future plans and long-term goals kasi nga you will not just depend on your emotions, and in order to establish emotional efficacy and emotional maturity, yung emotional regulation, prerequisite siya. So, emotional regulation is defined as an attempt to influence emotion. It can be applied in interacting with the self and with others. So, according to Gross in 1987, emotional regulation may take two forms. So, first is cognitive reappraisal. Pag sinabi natin cognitive reappraisal, it involves the evaluation of situation prior to making personal subjective valuation about it. This approach can be helpful because it allows for the logical evaluation of the situation instead of letting emotion rules over rationality. So, comes from the term cognitive, pinag-iisipan muna yung mga bagay-bagay bago ka magpadala dun sa emosyon mo. And then yung pangalawa naman, according to Gross, para ma-regulate mo yung emotion mo is suppression. So yung suppression, it involves denial and and masking yung facial expression. So kumbaga, galit ka na, pero nakasmile ka pa din. So to hide one's current emotions. In certain situations where expressing feeling will not always have positive outcomes, suppression may have a practical, it can be a practical option. Kasi just imagine, na kunwari pinahiya ka tapos ayaw mo talaga kasi 'pag pinahiya ka tapos pinahalata mo na napahiya ka, 'di ba parang mas nagiging, um, detrimental para sa'yo yung results na yun. So kumbaga kung mag-i-smile ka na lang, mas magiging advantageous sa'yo for that moment. Pero kung lagi natin sinusuppress yung ating feelings actually or emotions, hindi siya nagiging maganda. So yun siya. Next is yung approach naman na pag-uusapan natin is through the cognitive covert strategy or behavioral overt strategy. Medyo connected din siya dun sa nauna, which na cognitive reappraisal and yung suppression. So pag natin cognitive covert, yun, for the term cover, so hindi siya halata, inside siya nangyayari, it is the strategy that includes experiential avoidance. So, i-avoid mo yung pag-iisip ng ganon and feelings judged to be painful. So, rumination, ginagamit dyan later pag-uusapan natin yung rumination, acceptance and distraction. And the advantage of using this strategy is that they provide the ability to alter negative impact of unpleasant emotion. So example nga ng mga cognitive or covert strategies are yung avoidance, rumination, acceptance, and distraction. Later, pag-usapan natin kung ano yung mga yon. And then, next one is yung behavioral or overt strategy that entails engagement in observable activities. So, pag sinabi mong covert, hindi nakikita, inside nangyayari. Pag overt, ibig sabihin nakikita or behavioral yung nangyayari. So, for example, is yung behavioral avoidance, substance abuse, exercising, eating, getting involved with social activities. So, yung advantage naman nito is that it will be allowed to be monitored directly. So, for example, ako, when I feel frustrated, when I feel angry, actually, syempre, I feel angry. There are times that I feel angry. Ang ginagawa ko, maglilinis ako, kudkud, ganun, ganyan, para mawala. Yun yung mga overt strategies na ginagawa ko. Kasi kung mambabalibag ka, ikaw lang din maglilinis nun. So, much better kung maglinis ka na lang para wala ka nalilinisan later on. So, ito yung mga meta-analytical research na sinabi ko kanina dun sa covert and overt na yung mga emotional strategies na pwede natin gawin. So, pag isa-isahin natin sila. First is yung rumination. Yung rumination actually, isa to sa mga tinatawag natin defense mechanism. Pag sinabi mo kasi yung rumination, medyo pangit ang ibig sabihin nito. Alam niyo ba yung ginagawa ng mga aso na after nilang magsuka, gano'n, tapos kakainin nila yung sinuka nila, yun yung tinatawag na rumination. Pero on emotional, gawin natin siya, i-apply natin siya sa ating emotions. So, rumination is focused attention on the symptoms of one's distress and on its possible causes, consequences, as opposed to its solution. So, kumbaga, ulit-ulitin mo na maramdaman at saktan yung sarili mo. Kunwari, kapag nakikita mo yung bagay na yun, nasasaktan ka, ang gagawin mo, talagang tititigan mo pa yun. Yun yung rumination. Kumbaga, talagang i-contemplate mo yung sakit. Nandamdamin mo yung sakit. Yun yung ibig sabihin ng rumination. On the other part naman, yung pangalawa is distraction. So, distraction is anything you do to temporarily take your attention away from the strong emotion. So, kumbaga, yung mga ginagawa ng mga tao, to be distracted, yung ibang tao, nag-focus na lang sa pag-aaral, gano'n, para ma-distract sila dun sa sakit na nararamdaman nila. Para mas may kurot sa inyo, pag-usapan natin to in terms of love life, okay? Acceptance, ito naman yung mga ability to be mindful, being aware of your thoughts and feelings in the moment with acceptance is a hallmark of living a mindful way. So, kumbaga, ito, tinanggap mo na lang na iniwan ka na niya, hindi na siya babalik, ganon. So, mas nagkakaroon ba ng sinasabi ko 'to para mas maintindihan niyo at mas pumunta sa isip ninyo dahil ang hippocampus at amygdala nga magkapitbahay sila. So kapag kumurot 'yan sa iyong emosyon, malamang kukurot din 'yan sa iyong memory. So 'yan, problem solving. Kumbaga, kung kanina dun sa rumination, you are focusing on the symptoms or yung sakit. Sa problem solving, magfo-focus ka naman doon sa solusyon sa problema or dun sa nararamdaman mo. So it includes the ability to understand how emotions affect decision making. This trait is much more about your ability to solve problem and not let it affect you and the people around you. To work through the problem in a calm and undressed manner. So kumbaga, hindi mo hayaan na maapektuhan ng mga nangyari sa'yo yung pagdedesisyon mo sa buhay. Behavioral avoidance naman, kapag yung action yung ginagawa mong action is to escape the difficult thoughts and feelings. This behavior can occur in many different ways and may include action that are personal, that a person does or does not do. So, kumbaga, behavioral avoidance yung hindi ka na pupunta dun sa lugar kung saan kayo nag-date, hindi ka na mag-Facebook, kumpurahin mo yung mga number na meron ka sa kanya, yung mga ganon, or unfollow mo siya. Experiential avoidance naman is the attempt to avoid thoughts, feelings, memories, physical sensation. So, yun nga, ay, hindi. Yung behavioral, yun yung mga gagawin mo, like, magpapagupit ka, yung mga gano'n. Para para you feel okay. Yung experiential, ito yung i-a-avoid mo yung mga bagay na nagpapaalala sa'yo sa kanya, 'yan. I stand corrected. So, in internal experiences, even when doing so creates harm in the long run. Kasi nga, siyempre kapag iniiwasan mo lang, ina-avoid mo lang yung experience na yon, hindi mo dinil, iyon, magiging pangit din siya in the long run. Yung expressive suppression naman, it is defined as the attempt to hide and inhibit or reduce ongoing emotion expressive behavior. So, kumbaga, ito yung sinasabi, hindi, okay lang ako. Pero actually, deep inside, hindi ka naman okay. So, yun yung expressive suppression. Reappraisal naman, ito naman yung, nagsasabi ka ng cognitive reframing. Kumbaga, you are telling yourself na, kaya nangyari yung bagay na yon, it's for my good. May you always put silver lining on the dark clouds. Kumbaga, you are telling yourself that there will be a rainbow after this rain. So the goal is to talk to yourself in ways that make you feel better about yourself and the situation you're in. And then next is mindfulness. So ito yung kabaligtaran ng expressive suppression wherein um kung dun sa isa sinusuppress mo lang yung nararamdaman mo, you're saying you're okay, iniiwasan mong isipin na hindi ka okay. Sa mindfulness, talagang i-befriend mo, or when you feel anxious about things, you will say anxiety or nervousness, I acknowledge that you're here. So, ganun yung mindfulness exercise. Kumbaga, kung kinakabahan ka, i-acknowledge mo na nandiyan si ka ba para maging mindful ka sa kanya. Kumbaga, you will be mindful about everything. So, by way of mindfulness meditation, individuals can learn how to regulate their emotions in a way that aversive stimuli will be viewed objectively. So, pag nakita mo kasi yung isang stimuli like yung nervousness, na parang you will treat them as friends, you will befriend them, you can manage them, mas maayos mo silang ma-manage talaga. And then lastly is yung worry. So ito yung sobrang pag-aalala, yan. So ito yung excess emotion that remains after all reasonable measure are taken to safeguard your family and personal interests. So ito yung nararamdaman natin ngayon. It's normal to worry because worrying is actually a thing that we do for us to survive. So, however, these are more common characteristics share. So, by individual who have achieved emotional maturity and efficacy. So, ito yung mga pag-uusapan natin. Ano ba yung mga bagay na madalas nakikita sa mga taong meron ng emotional maturity? Una, self-control. Hindi sila basta-basta nagwawala, naninigaw, or things na naninira ng mga gamit na nununtok. So 'pag ikaw medyo gano'n pa rin yung ginagawa, nanununtok, nambabasag, nambabalibag, hindi ka pa emotionally matured. Next is trustworthiness, maintaining standards of honesty and integrity. Kahit na under pressure ka na, kahit na may mga bagay kang pinagdadaanan, still hindi mo sirain yung prinsipyo mo. Next is conscientiousness, taking responsibility for one's performance. Even though may pinagdadaanan ka, hindi maaapektuhan yung quality of work mo. Still, you will go to work. Hindi ka mag-a-absent dahil lang may pinagdadaanan ka sa bahay at gagawin mong excuse na, "Ma'am, sorry po, nag-away po kasi kami ni ganito, ganyan, ganyan," or something, something, ganon. So, pag yung tao marami excuses at ginagamit niya yung mga emotions niya to be an excuse for underperformance, therefore, emotionally immature siya. Next is adaptability, meaning handling changes with flexibility. May mga tao kasing takot sila sa changes. Kapag nakakaramdam sila na meron ng changes, they're resistant about it. So therefore, those people are emotionally immature. So kumbaga, open ka for change, open-minded ka, you are very flexible and adaptable to things. So as you adapted to this new modes of learning which is online, therefore, meron ng glimpse of emotional maturity sa'yo. Next is empathy. Understanding other people and putting yourself in their shoes. So, hindi lang siya yung, ay, nakakaawa naman siya, tapos picture, picture. Empathy is feeling what the other people feels. It is very different with sympathy, wherein you just feel bad about the person, but you don't really empathize with that person. So thus, it is important that you as student engage in learning opportunities, not only for the acquisition of knowledge and information, but more so on the acquisition of emotional regulation strategies that will empower you to become productive social citizen and empathic leaders of the future. That is why I am inviting you again for the seminars on mental health. So, and other seminars, yung mga webinars na binibigay namin sa Guidance and Testing Center ng school natin. FB Live yon. So, kumbaga, may plus points ka na, natuto ka pa on regulating your emotions. So, on a final note, we learned about emotion, and then we learned about regulating our emotions. So, last week, I asked you to watch the film, yung Inside Out. So that is hitting two birds in one stone because you learn about memory, about intelligence through that movie. And then later on, this week, this module, we learned about emotions. So kumbaga, itong picture na to, it is telling us that every possible emotional overlap in Inside Out. So yung combination ng bawat emotion, yung combination ni joy, sadness, disgust, fear, and anger brought about yung mga ibang emotions. So kung titingnan natin, kapag pala malungkot ka na masaya, hindi mo maintindihan, malungkot ako na masaya, melancholy pala yon. Kapag pala malungkot ka na nandidire, yan. So, this is available on the internet. You can use it para i-name nyo yung emotions nyo. Always remember on the final note that you can never manage something that you do not accept. So the first step of managing your emotion is naming them and accepting them that you feel them. So when you feel offended, when you feel angry or any like rage, hatred, terror, yung mga strong emotions na tinatawag natin, you have to accept them first. And then after accepting them, doon mo pa lang sila mamamanage. Doon mo pa lang sila makokontrol. So thank you so much. See you later sa ating synchronous class. Goodbye.